Did I scare you? Because if I didn't, well, then maybe these 5 wrestlers on today's list will, because I'm going over the 5 spookiest WWE wrestlers to ever exist. And I'm generally not a spooky wrestling fan. It takes me out of the suspension of disbelief that you have to actually enjoy wrestling. But every once in a while, WWE actually gets it right. So we're going to start off at number 5. This is Gangrel and The Brood. Okay, so this one, I don't know why it worked. This like has all the trappings of a character I wouldn't like, because here we got this guy. He comes with a chalice and it's with red liquid, because I don't think they can really say blood. So it's like red liquid. This is the Attitude Era. He's walking down. He's like, he has like a pirate shirt on, like a fluffy shirt, and his name is Gangrel. Now, Gangrel was actually a name used, I believe, it was a Dungeons and Dragons type game at the time. I believe it was like, what was it, like White Wolf or something? Vampire? Probably Vampire the Masquerade, that's what it was. So that name was already copywritten, and they made some kind of deal, but now Gangrel, he's still actually on the independent scene, and actually just wrestled with Edge in AEW. He made an appearance, but yeah, so Gangrel, he's this guy who thinks he's a vampire, and this is also the time when Edge debuted, right? But at the time, Edge was this like brooding, silent character. Originally, Vince Russo wanted him to be like Jim Morrison of The Doors, who coincidentally is my favorite band of all time. But don't age me to living in the 60s, because if you don't know who The Doors are, they were popular in the 60s. They just happened to be my favorite band. I was born 79, thank you. Anyways, so Edge, he's like this broody character, and suddenly Gangrel starts to appear, and it's like, oh my gosh, they have a connection. What could it be? And because Edge wasn't talking, it was so mysterious. And then suddenly another guy starts showing up with Gangrel, and who could that be? Turns out it's Edge's brother Christian teamed up with Gangrel. Gangrel and Edge, they have something, and then suddenly Edge starts teaming up with Gangrel and Christian, and now they're the Brood for their limited time in the business. I don't know why they're so memorable. You know, honestly, I don't know why they're so memorable, but they had one of the best entrances. They came from under the platform. You know, they would be raised up and engulfed in flames, and then they would just walk out just like, yeah, you know, we have Gangrel who's all happy, just like looking, bobbing his head back and forth, sticking out his tongue ring, and we have Edge and Christian, you know, flanking him. I don't know, the presentation was awesome. And then when they didn't like you, you would get into a bloodbath or a red liquid bath, because the lights would go out, and whoever they were facing, the lights would come back on, and they'd be covered in blood. Oh my god! It was amazing. And then they actually turned out to be the Druids in the Ministry of Darkness, but I'm getting ahead of myself when I bring up the Ministry of Darkness. I just really thought that the Brood, specifically Gangrel, because Gangrel always stays a vampire, while Edge and Christian, they go off to be, you know, two totally tubular dudes, and Edge goes out to be the rated R superstar. But Gangrel has always stayed a vampire, and that is why he makes number 5 on this list. And you want to know something else that is scary? Failure. Failure is scary, and I refuse to be scared by failure. Therefore, I will succeed in becoming a full-time YouTuber, and to do so, I'm going to give away this belt. How do you win it? Comment below, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and watch the videos when they pop up. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. You'd be surprised how much that helps. If you want to help the channel grow, whether it's because you want to win the belt, or you want to just help me become a full-time YouTuber, you got to do all those things. If you wouldn't mind. And if you do mind, please do it anyways. Number 4 is Mankind. We know Mankind today as Mick Foley. Mick Foley was lovable, and he's just great. He's like everybody's uncle. He's the coolest guy that wants to say, hey kids, let's go to the amusement park and meet Santa Claus. That's Mick Foley to us nowadays. But when WWE was introduced to Mick Foley, he was this dude with a pet rat in a boiler room saying, hey man, just humanity sucks. He had a Hannibal Hannibal Lecter mask, and he would just rip his hair out. You would look, he was missing an ear, and he would have matches. He would just stab himself in the leg with a fork, I think, or he would at least hit himself. He'd pull out his own hair. I think I already said that, but let me tell you something. He pulled out a lot of hair. He would come down to the ring with like this really demonic, evil music. Look at the crowd like it was almost like he was just released from a dungeon. Not even prison, but a dungeon with no lights. So he's kind of just like looking at the crowd, squinty eyes because his eyes aren't used to bright lights. Because this is a monster that you gotta keep trapped away from the world, right? He does the mandible claw. And the mandible claw is like, what the heck is this? He would take his fingers and just ram them down your throat. And he'd be like, he'd be screaming as he did it, and it was like, whoa, what is this dude? And sidebar, one of the early videos on this exact channel, I'll put a link in the description or something, I talk about how Mick Foley, Mankind, actually put the mandible claw on me in a men's bathroom. True story, true story. Okay, well, anyways, he wins the match, right? And then the music changes. Now the music is very calming and peaceful and everything. And they explained it in that they had to calm the guy down. The music in the beginning is his real music, but the music at the end is so they can calm him down. You know, he's all nice, subdued, and then they can lock him back up. Because Mankind was such a, like, I don't know, creature that it was just cool. It was amazing. And then he goes after Undertaker, and I thought it was just another instance of a character being built up just to take a loss to Undertaker, because Undertaker was like, you know, we're going to talk about Undertaker. You know, we all know where the Undertaker's going to fall on a spooky list, but they gave Undertaker a lot of people to just like, they would come in with a big push and then they would lose to Undertaker and be on their way. And that's what I thought would happen with Mankind. So Mankind, though, he wins against Undertaker, and I'm like, wow. He beat Undertaker in a Boiler Room Brawl. I'm like, wow, I can't believe that happened. Well, the next match he'll lose. And then he won the next match. And then Paul Bearer turns on the Undertaker, and suddenly he's with Mankind. It was like, here's a spooky, evil character that is actually beating the Undertaker. Somehow, this evil, deranged, secluded prisoner, or whatever he is, demented, evil, just love punishment. Somehow he's like winning against the Undertaker, and then he starts just thriving, you know? And he's actually going into other feuds. I couldn't believe it that a character brought in to just feed the Undertaker actually managed to have staying power. And he fought Shawn Michaels in one of the greatest matches of Shawn Michaels' championship run. Unfortunately, it was ended by a total lame DQ finish, and eventually Undertaker would get his win back, but Mankind stuck around. And then, as the Attitude Era is progressing, it's like, how is Mankind going to survive in the Attitude Era? Because Mankind is like, he's a creature of the new generation, or the Golden Era, just like these really far out gimmicks, and the Attitude Era is just about like in-your-face aggression and attitude, honestly. And somehow, some way, he survives. He has this series of interviews with Jim Ross, and it humanizes Mankind, and he starts to actually go into who he actually is under the mask, and it's Mick Foley. And he explains that he wasn't always like this. He actually feels pain. He doesn't enjoy pain, but he feels it. He has a high tolerance for it. And he explains how he got to this moment. And somehow, some way, throughout this series of interviews, the crowd turns and actually starts cheering him. And so now he starts coming to the ring to cheers, which is crazy. And so he's still doing this like this evil gimmick, but now he's hearing the cheers. And suddenly this creature is a good guy. And then we slowly started peeling back more of this Mankind onion. We got to see Mick Foley, we got to see Dude Love, Cactus Jacks, all these things that Mankind wanted to be. And then he becomes champion. He became champion in one of the greatest moments in Monday Night Raw. Like, it's insane that this spooky, creepy creature becomes champion during the Attitude Era. Now, eventually Mankind, we got Socko and all that stuff. When we get Socko and he's a pure babyface, he's no longer really the Mankind that I was describing in the beginning. He has changed completely. And now he's just Mick Foley under all that stuff. And he's like goofy, he's lovable, he's all these things. He's no longer the spooky Mankind, and now he's like a goofy version of Mick Foley that happens to still use the Mankind outfit. So after the interviews and Hell in the Cell and all those things, he slowly becomes more Mick Foley than Mankind, but before all of that, when he's the heel and everything, Mankind, that was like spooky and scary creature. That was definitely a spooky and scary monster. Number 3's gotta be Kane. It's gotta be Kane. Kane is another person that I thought, no way can this character survive after The Undertaker pins him. There's been so much buildup to Kane that he was stereotypical, feed him to Undertaker and get him out of here. They got lucky with Mankind. No way they could repeat this with Kane. And Kane had an awesome build, probably one of the best builds in WWE history, but only to lose at WrestleMania. And I was like, man, if they would have just given Kane the win. This was before the streak was really the streak. And I was thinking, man, if Kane could have beat The Undertaker, who knows, maybe they could have had 2 Undertaker-level characters. But somehow he survived. I figured, okay, they get the rematch, Kane loses or wins, hopefully he wins, but nope, he lost an Inferno match, and how is he supposed to survive after that? Loss after loss to his big brother? No, there's no way he's going to survive, and yet he did. He becomes champion for a day. Somehow, some way, they made Kane have staying power. Not only staying power, but the dude, I mean, he was like an active wrestler for like 20 years, like week in, week out, not just like appear during, WrestleMania season. It's insane. But if you go back to Kane's character, it's insane. He has one of the most insane backstories of anybody. They actually retold his origin brilliantly. It's when Daniel Bryan and Kane went to anger management, and Kane just sat there and retold his story, and he told it in like one take, and everybody just looked at him. It was crazy. I was actually surprised that WWE was keeping true to Kane's backstory. I thought they kind of just like washed it away, but no, in 2010, 11, or 12, and they retold Kane's story perfectly. Go back and watch that. If you can Google Kane Daniel Bryan therapy, you'll probably find when he retells his origin story, but his origin is this. Now, I'm going to say this as it's been like everything has been revealed, because eventually there's a plot twist that Undertaker is really responsible for this, because at first Paul Bearer comes and says, Undertaker, you killed your parents, and Undertaker's like, no, I didn't, but yeah, it turned out Undertaker did. So anyways, it starts with Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer is a friend of the family, and he starts to have an affair with Undertaker's mom. Undertaker's mom has a kid. That is Kane. Kane and Undertaker, they grow up together, right? But then Undertaker views Kane as weak. So he sets his house on fire to strengthen him up somehow. And that fire kills Undertaker's parents. And then Undertaker also thinks it killed Kane. Paul Bearer, though, has taken Kane, his legitimate son, that Undertaker thought was his parents' kid, but turns out it's only Paul Bearer's mom and it's Undertaker's mom and Paul Bearer's kid. But anyway, so Paul Bearer takes Kane away, and he puts him like in a basement and tells him all these things. Hey, you've been burned, you are injured, you are this, you are that. And he feeds them all of this, like, I don't know, this story about how hideous he looks. And he does that throughout his entire life, right? He does that throughout his entire life. Somehow Kane goes to college, though, and has a girlfriend named Vicky. I think it's Vicky. Is it Vicky? It's like, do yourself a favor. Don't Google Kane's girlfriend and Triple H. But anyways, so for his whole life, he's told that he's hideous and a freak. And then Paul Bearer goes back to Undertaker and helps him then rise up to become the wrestler that he is. All the while, he's keeping Kane in his basement. And so then, like I told you earlier, Paul Bearer turns on Undertaker goes with Mankind. No wonder I've never explained this out loud. It's ridiculous. He goes with Mankind, and when Mankind starts to lose to Undertaker, well, Paul Bearer wants to get back with Undertaker, but Undertaker's like, no, you betrayed me. I don't want it. So, spited by Undertaker, Paul Bearer gets mad and says, fine. He said, if you don't make me your manager, I'm going to reveal your secret. Kane. And then Undertaker's like, what? Nobody knows who Kane is. And so he takes Paul Bearer back as his manager for a little bit, but then he gets fed up with it. He's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So then Paul Bearer says, fine, I'm going to go get Kane. And then at Hell in a Cell versus Shawn Michaels, the first Hell in a Cell, we have Paul Bearer coming out with this big red machine, and it's gotta be Kane. One of the best calls of all time. Vince McMahon saying, it's gotta be Kane. And Kane then obliterates Undertaker. Shawn Michaels gets the win. And then basically, I think from October all the way to April, we have Kane and Undertaker kind of like, Undertaker doesn't want to fight Kane, but Kane wants to fight Undertaker, back and forth, till finally Kane gets his match, and that's when Kane loses, that I already talked about earlier, and somehow, eventually, they do become friendly, they team up for a while, they feud, they have off and on again feuds for the longest time, they even team up as the Brothers of Destruction at some point, even when Undertaker becomes Biker Taker, they're still, like, in canon, in storyline brothers, it's like, awesome, amazing. Eventually, Kane does get a little watered down in that he forms a friendship with X-Pac. X-Pac says, you can talk. He's like, no, you don't need this. He pulls it away, and Kane can still talk. And slowly but surely, it's revealed that, well, you know, maybe Paul Bearer was lying to Kane all these years, and he fed him all this nonsense about him being burned and stuff, and because eventually Triple H has a match with them where you have to take off the mask. If he loses, he takes off his mask, and he's not burned. He's not burned at all. And so JR again does an interview with Kane, and he's like, hey man, you've always told us that you were really burned and stuff, but you don't look burned. And Kane says, oh, you're just like everybody else. You say I'm not, but you're making fun of me. So psychologically, Kane thought he was burned and hideous, and everybody was lying to him because Paul Bearer had, like, brainwashed him since a kid or something. So then Kane goes on a rampage for a while without the mask. And yeah, so that's the history of Kane. There's even more, and ups and downs with Kane. Sometimes he's very demonic, sometimes not so much, but, like, yeah. Whew, Kane, honestly, maybe he should have been number one with that backstory. All right, number two is going to be a tie. I'm putting Bray Wyatt and Uncle Howdy together, Bo Dallas. We'll talk mainly Bray Wyatt, but I'm going to put these guys together because they're so interlinked right now. Eventually, Bo will probably get his own number once we see how this Wyatt 6 stuff plays out, but right now I'm just putting them together. But Bray Wyatt, wow, this dude definitely could have been number one had he not been taken from us too soon. Bray Wyatt, an insane genius. Definitely had a lot of ideas. I actually prefer the Swamp People Bray Wyatt, the cult leader Bray Wyatt. That, to me, was the scariest version of Bray Wyatt. The Fiend was definitely a horror movie. The Fiend was like the Nun horror movie, just like a demon. I enjoyed The Fiend. It did sometimes take me out of that suspension of disbelief I was telling you about earlier, in that he could take 23 curb stomps and still get up, but let's not talk about that. Let's not focus on the negative. Let's focus on the scary positive. Because in the beginning, when he was Bray Wyatt, the cult leader, that's when he was the scariest. When he had the whole world in his hand, he had the crowd singing. You know, that was so awesome. I loved that. And I'll tell you something. You could put on a scary mask, but you meet some hill folk in Kentucky that make their own whiskey in the mountains. They're scarier. They are scarier. Or some Louisiana swamp people. I'm not trying to be offensive, so if you are from those areas, and I'm being offensive, I apologize, but I'm telling you, like, maybe it's the movie Deliverance when you have the kid with the banjo. That scarred me, and if you haven't watched that movie, don't. Don't watch that movie, please. You meet some swamp people or hill people, and they make their own whiskey, and they got a problem with you. You got nowhere to go. You're on their land. That's scary. That is scary. And they're going to do something to you. And you're not going to like it. That, to me, that's the real scary. That's real life scary. And that's what I liked. I like the real life scary, the creepy, the unnervingness, more than the spooky lightning out your fingers. And yeah, but so that Bray Wyatt, and the fact that he could draw people in with his words, his tapestry of words, he was scary because he was a cult leader. This was the kind of cult leader that could, all right, guys, the military is coming. Let's all drink the Kool-Aid, and everybody's like, cheers, and just slurps down that Kool-Aid and they would ask for seconds, but they're all on the ground. That, to me, that Bray Wyatt was the scariest. However, I think people are going to remember his Fiend character as his scariest, most demonic characters. And while, yeah, most demonic, I don't feel it's the scariest, but like I said, that's my opinion. The Fiend, though, was very, very unique. We had Bray Wyatt of the Funhouse, the Firefly Funhouse. I did like that one, though. He had his own kid show. He was Mr. Rogers, basically, but every once in a while he gets super dark. And then his alter ego, the Fiend, would be happening. And it was just like, what the heck is going on? You had super nice guy Bray Wyatt, and then the Fiend comes out, destroys everybody. And nobody could even touch the Fiend. It was just insane. And he had like a burnt mask of his former face. I don't even know. He was just like, whoa, dude, what the heck is this? And the music, the entrance, the presentation, everything about the Fiend, everything about Bray Wyatt, Firefly Funhouse. There were so many layers to it, and small hidden Easter eggs, and only Bray Wyatt. It is insane mind that everything made sense, and it was a presentation, and it was really good, and a lot of people are going to always be like, wow, the Fiend. Unfortunately, Uncle Howdy actually was going to play a part in this too, but it just didn't work out because of his untimely passing. But we got Uncle Howdy now. And Bo Dallas has had a great start. Bo Dallas, he's off and running. His first real appearance, he massacred the entire backstage of Raw. So, I haven't really seen anyone else do that. So he's starting off hot, but he has cooled down some, and I don't know. There were some VHSs also where that was really cool because we got to see Bo and Uncle Howdy actually interviewing each other, and you got to see that. That was amazing. I loved it. But I don't know. I think that their faces right now, they're baby faces, and I think that's kind of hurting the overall presentation of being evil, demonic, and spooky when you're, vigilantes. So I hope they turn heel so they can really embrace this darker side of them, but not too dark. I don't want smoke coming out of their fingers. And so Uncle Howdy, I'm going to kind of put with the Fiend on this list because of it's basically a passing of the torch. Even if it was involuntarily a passing of the torch, it's still a passing of the torch, and Uncle Howdy's going to carry on the Bray Wyatt legacy. So that's why I'm putting them together, but this is more of Bray Wyatt, and we'll see what Uncle Howdy can do for the future, because eventually I could see Uncle Howdy having his own number and not sharing it with Bray, but right now they're just going to share. Honorable mention, the Boogeyman. I hate the Boogeyman, but, can I really have a list of spooky WWE characters without the Boogeyman? I don't know. That one too goofy, too over the top. It's the Boogeyman, I'm coming to get you. And the fact that, people like King Booker and LBJ were, really actually scared of the guy. It'd be one thing for Dominic to be actually scared of the guy, or The Miz to be solely, creeped out by the fact that he has, worms coming out of his mouth, but to be, legitimately scared that this guy's coming to get me. I didn't like the Boogeyman, but if you like the Boogeyman, all power to you, but honorable mention, Boogeyman. And the number one spookiest character of all time is The Undertaker. It has to be The Undertaker. Couldn't be anybody else but The Undertaker. He just showed up at WrestleMania 40, right? He debuted at WrestleMania 6, and he's still showing up at WrestleManias to have an impact on storyline when he showed up when the gong hit, the lights went out, and he's the one that chokeslams the final boss, The Rock. That's how powerful The Undertaker is, all right? That's how much of a mainstay The Undertaker is. Should this gimmick work? No, it shouldn't. He debuted in 1989 when they had a giant egg at Survivor Series and the gobbledygooker busted out. He debuted in a goofy time of wrestling, right? And then the new generation happened, where there's Duke the Dumpster and the Godwins, Pig Farmers, and he thrives in that time period. And then the Attitude Era happens, where it's all realistic stuff, and everyone's just mad at each other, and they're all fighting for the brass ring. How is Undertaker, a goofy mortician, dead man, supposed to survive in that element? Well, he does. How does he do it? He becomes the most evil, demonic version of himself, which is my favorite version of himself, and maybe my favorite gimmick, one of my favorite gimmicks of all time, the Ministry of Darkness Undertaker. This dude was just straight up crazy, and I loved it because his name is Mark Calloway, right? At the time, nobody ever called him Mark. It was like The Undertaker, The Undertaker, The Undertaker, and Vince McMahon one time said, I think Mark is taking his gimmick too seriously. I think Mark is starting to believe that he's actually the Undertaker. And that changed everything. Now it was realistic. Now Mark was the Undertaker and he believed it. So this Undertaker character who was all evil and stuff before, we all knew it was scripted, right? Well, now if Mark is believing he's the Undertaker, it's no longer scripted for him. So when he's going to embalm you, he's going to really embalm you because he thinks he actually is the Undertaker. He has some kind of mental disease or, schizophrenia or something. And that was great to explain it because now the Undertaker was a true threat in the Attitude Era that was grounded in reality, but still this over-the-top gimmick. But Stone Cold Steve Austin on a symbol that, it's the cross. It's the cross. You put him on the cross, but it's a symbol, the U and the T, so they can kind of get away with it with standards and practice. Stone Cold just hoisted up, Undertaker underneath him going, looking all evil. We have Undertaker, he kidnaps Stephanie McMahon. He's going to have an evil darkness wedding with her. She's tied up to the same symbol, and Undertaker is doing the vows with her. How insane is this guy? How insane is this guy? He's collected a bunch of jobbers around him. He brainwashes them. He does some ritual, literally doing demonic rituals over them to get them to completely just obey his every command. That Undertaker was so evil. The best Undertaker of all time. That is my favorite version of The Undertaker. Unfortunately, he was dealing with a lot of injuries and stuff, and the storyline kind of went a little sideways when Vince McMahon, it was me, Austin, it was me. I wish The Undertaker and the corporation would have stayed separate, but I understand why it happened. Anyway, so then he has to go away for a little bit, and when he comes back as Biker Taker. He changed up his gimmick for the Ruthless Aggression era, and even Attitude Era too, and he was still the Undertaker, but now he was more like a real version of himself. He was literally a biker guy. He rode on a bike, everything. He was real life. But eventually, Kane, his brother, brings back Old Undertaker, and then we get Old Undertaker, which fights like Biker Taker, but has the gimmick of Old Taker, and he, even though I say I don't like lighting out your fingers, Undertaker could kind of do stuff like that, and for some reason he gets a pass. There's exceptions to every rules, and Undertaker kind of gets a pass. I didn't like it when it happened, but I didn't completely revolt against it. But usually, if somebody else would do it, I would. And it's just because he's the Undertaker. He was, the most demonic, evil being to ever exist in the WWE universe. Like I said earlier, he burned down his house to make his baby brother stronger. What? He puts people in caskets. He has buried alive matches. He will come at you and destroy you. He will put you in a casket and burn it. That's the Undertaker. He has lasted the test of time. From, if we go by WrestleMania years, he was at WrestleMania 6 and he was at WrestleMania 40. That dude has been just here, non-stop, just scaring the crap out of people. Back in the day, he would just come out and just be the dead man. And that is your 5 spooky characters of WWE. Did I miss anybody? Let me know in the comments below and let me know what you think about my list and who you would rank number 1, number 2, number 3. And yeah, guys, girls, have a spooky day.